At a time when there is a serious housing crisis, public housing is being deliberately dismantled with policies that place residents and put public housing lands into the hands of private developers. The latest proposal from Seattle Housing Authority, stepping forward, would increase rents regardless of the ability to pay for those who are considered to be workable adults, and that is ages 24 to 61, who do not have a disability. And rents would increase 400% over 5 years. Seattle Housing Authority says they will provide tenants with workforce advisors that will help them get a job, get a better job, or start a business.
What job?
Good question. Seattle Housing Authority believes residents need these rent hikes as incentive to get a higher paying job. However, as Fadumo was telling me during lunch, during a snack break here, or during dinner, it is designed in the long run to push people out of public housing, as the proposal does not take into consideration the fact that wages are not keeping up with the cost of housing, and Seattle has a serious wage inequality and growing poverty problem.
Yes.
Let me tell you, this issue is very personal to me because I grew up in public housing, which provided a stable home for my mother and 5 siblings. This very essential service is being undermined, and it's disturbing to me. But people are on the move to do something, such as people here at the front that you'll be able to hear about. And also, I am proud to be part of RW and FSP.
Had a good reputation. Now their reputation stinks.
Yeah.
They used to bat 100. Now they bat at 0. Andrew Lawford is only doing as he's told. So it shouldn't be shame, shame, shame on Andrew Lawford. It should be shame, shame, shame on SHA, period. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sidney. Our next speaker is Fadumo Isaq. She is a mother, grandmother, and child care provider. She's a Yesler Terrace resident and also a leader. Please come up.
Good evening. My name is Fadumo Isaq. I'm originally from Ethiopia. I live in Yesler Terrace 16 years now. I have 7 kids. I'm a single mother. And it's too hard in this process. Because HSA say you have to pay 80% rent. When you don't know English, it's too hard to get nice job. And when you don't have GED, it's another hard, because now the process is, I'm sorry, my English is not very good. The process, even if you apply dishwashing, they say you have to have GED. The people struggle with the GED process. And it's too hard, 50 years old, with the 7 kids or 5 kids, to go provide for kids and go take GED. But Seattle Housing say you have to get high education to work with the $19 or $20. When you cannot get dishwasher job, they need GED. Where you get the $20 or $19 job? It's too hard. So that's in my mind, I think they push us, every low-income people. They don't want the low-income people. They want to bring the people who have money in there, because they sell the house. They say, oh, it's 9,000 in the waiting list. If 9,000 is in the waiting list, that means they want to kick out 9,000 and put another 9,000. But if they don't want to kick out, why they send the property? They can build another house to who need it. If I tell you now, go take a GED with the Somali or Ethiopian language, can't? It's too hard. He cannot do it, but he push people to do something he cannot be there. So we need your help. And we need public help. Because it's many people. It's not about only adults, it's many kids will suffer, many mothers, many people, they don't know even how to write and read. They push away, because before we say, America is very good. God bless America. They bring us from war and help us, and we're happy. But now, Seattle House want to push us in the street. Because you don't know how to read, you don't know how to write. How you get $19 hours job? You can't. So, we need public help. Because this man, he drives poor people very bad. And we need public help, and we need to protest on him. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fadumo. The next speaker is Gina Petry. She's Radical Women President, organizer for low-income families and and single mothers. So, welcome, Gina.
Thank you, Christina. So I'm very happy to be part of this panel here tonight to talk about this very important issue on saving public housing. And I want to thank Sidney and Fadumo for speaking before me, laying out that this really is a big problem that we need to stop. So just a little bit about me. My background is in social work, and I worked with countless single mothers and who were struggling day after day to piece together enough income and resources to survive, and there was never enough. This is what pushed me even more to be the socialist feminist organizer I am now, because frankly we need to fight for something better than what we're being given right now. I knew it was time to work for that, and the women and men that I worked with deserve that. So tonight I want to talk just a little bit about history of public housing, what I think of SHA's proposal, and spoiler alert, I think it's terrible. Who's making money off of this, and some ideas of what we can do. So just a little bit on the roots of public housing. Public housing was actually created in this country around the time of the Great Depression because there were communists, radicals, and unemployed workers who were fighting the massive unemployment and poverty that was happening during the Great Depression. And almost a decade after they were organized and enacted rent strikes and eviction resistance, it forced the government to enact housing reforms, such as rent control and the public housing that we see today. But now, public housing, which has been underfunded since the 1970s, ever since President Nixon declared a construction moratorium in 1973, the government has been contracting with private developers and property owners who say that they'll keep a certain amount of housing affordable, and what affordable means is questionable. They'll keep it affordable for a specific period of time in return for massive subsidies. So basically, public money has been going to fund private developers' projects instead of real public housing. And then we had the Clinton administration's Hope 6 program, in which probably many people in this room, Sydney, probably saw some of that happening too, in which many of the project-based public housing units were demolished and replaced with market rate homes. So in addition to funneling money to developers, they were selling off public land even then. And because of this policy, the U.S. has lost roughly about 10,000 public housing units per year. And you can see the effect in many major cities, and we certainly saw it here in Seattle with Holly Park and Rainier Vista and High Point. So now we've got the Obama administration and the expanding the federal Moving to Work Plan program, which, by the way, is a voluntary program that housing authorities participate in, and it gives them the power to create different rental structures and experiment with other rule changes that will help them be more, quote, efficient and help people graduate from the program, the public housing program. So this is what's giving SHA the room to create the Stepping Forward proposal. So we can thank the Obama administration for that. So right now, about 6 million families live in some form of public housing. And, you know, as Fadumo was saying, there's 9,000 people on the waiting list. And when SHA opened up their Section 8 waiting list in 2013, they received 24,000 applications for 2,000 spots. So instead of kicking people out of housing, like Fadumo was talking about, they need to be fighting to build more public housing. So if you live in Seattle and you go to the grocery store, ride the bus, like most of us do, you know the cost of living is going up. But the rich are doing just fine, by the way. The richest 20% have seen their incomes go up, and the poorest 20% income have not changed. So I guess that's what a free market capitalist would call an economic recovery, something. But I wouldn't call it that, that's for sure. And, you know, the Stepping Forward proposal will make things worse. It will ultimately kick tenants out, like we said, and really to say that people's lives are on the line is an understatement, because people don't have another choice. And the workable families who are disproportionately impacted by Stepping Forward are, you know, as Fadumo was talking about, immigrant women, people of color, and single mothers. And getting a job is not that simple. First of all, I would just like to know, where are these jobs and what are they going to pay? You know, the Workforce Development Council says, oh, you know, there's jobs coming, we know. We're in an economic recovery, again with that economic recovery. But I'm quite sure they're not going to pay a livable wage and have full benefits for people. So, anyway, no, jobs, these fairy dust jobs. And I just have to say, I get really mad about the moralism of the Seattle Housing Authority and saying that people need to have an incentive to pay more rent or to get a job. They need this rent incentive to get a job. There's many roadblocks that, for a single mother, for instance, that are in the way to get a job, like needing quality, affordable childcare, for one. Washington State is the top 10 for the most expensive childcare in the nation. And the subsidized childcare programs that people have probably heard, oh, we can get you subsidies for childcare. Guess what? Those have had budget cuts too. They have waiting lists too. So mothers and all families need 24-hour childcare for all ages that's publicly funded, and that's what we have to demand. And I just want to say, you know, many women are caregivers of the elderly and sick, of family members, of fellow tenants. And, you know, and these are people that SHA says you should get to work too. But can I just say, these women have been working this whole time. Maybe they're not getting paid for it, or maybe they're not getting paid enough, which is the case. And the work that women traditionally do, such as being caregivers, teachers, nurses, office workers, all these jobs are way underpaid. And because of the especially large gender wage gap in Seattle, it's going to be highly unlikely that a woman doing this type of work will get to the $20 an hour that they need to pay this rent. So we got a big problem ahead of us, but the good news, because there is good news, is that people are standing up. People are speaking out and organizing against stepping forward. And it's building on the fights that many of tenants in this room and beyond that have waged over their rights over the years. So, and it's really the women who are in the lead of fighting against this SHA proposal. And you can see it with our panelists here tonight. I know some of the women in the room here have been fighting against it in their own communities. And, you know, they've been organizing to get to the hearings and get to these protests. And women are in the lead of this because we're so intimately connected to, you know, home and the care of people in the future generations. So, I mean, when you're talking about people, really talking about people's livelihood. And I just want to share a little bit. Women have been in the lead fighting for public housing in other cities as well. So, you know, we can take inspiration from them. For instance, in LA, Latina women in the Pico Gardens project have led the fight to stop their homes from falling into private developers' hands. They were able to delay it until next year, which is great, and they vow to keep up the pressure. And young homeless mothers in London have been occupying abandoned housing flats after budget cuts caused an eviction from their group hostel. The women turned 4 boarded-up flats into a social center and open housing for other homeless people. Yeah, that's right, good for them. Absolutely. I mean, these stories really are an inspiration. I mean, what we see in our own community and what I've been reading about around the nation and the world. And the fact is to me, this shows something that I really believe in my bones, that we can depend on each other to fight for each other. That's our instinct. And women and men are united. I mean, look around the room. We're all here together. Because we know we have the same enemy, and together we can keep up the pressure and stop this proposal. So we have to tackle, this is where we get to who's benefiting from this. We do have to tackle who's benefiting from these destructive changes to public housing. And I'd say in Seattle, as Fadumo mentioned, it's pretty clear who's benefiting. It's the rich developers, right? So have folks heard about how Paul Allen's company Vulcan just bought 3 blocks of Yesler Terrace property? Three more blocks of Yesler Terrace property for $22 million. Yes, exactly. Exactly, they gave it away. And Vulcan says that of the housing that they build in these 3 blocks, that 20% of it will be for people who earn less than 80% of the median income. So that's hardly housing for low income or the extremely low income. And frankly, it's not enough housing. So developers have been salivating for that prime real estate for years. Right? They have their eyes on profits and not on people. So SHA says they don't have money. This is why they're doing stepping forward. This is why they're selling off property. Well, I say they need to open their books and prove it. And I would love to know where all the sale of this public housing, where has that money gone? I think we can probably take some guesses, but we have a right to know. They're a public agency. So, I believe that Seattle City Council has actually been complicit in this deal with Vulcan, too. And I want to call on them, Seattle City Council, to enact an immediate emergency moratorium on the sale of public lands to private developers. Because you know what? We need publicly owned public housing that people can actually afford to move into. And if the Seattle City Council is as concerned about the low-income residents of Seattle as they say they are, as they put in their letter to the Housing Authority, and many of them have come out in opposition to the Stepping Forward proposal, and that's good. But if they care that much about the low-income residents of this city, then they need to do more. They need to stop letting the developers get away with highway robbery. It really is the policies of this Democrat-led city government that have been paving the way for developers to buy up all of this property in the city. And developers are lining their wallets with profits and with tax breaks. And the actions of elected officials will show us which side they're actually on. So I think we can put the pressure on SHA, and we should put it on the city council too.
Mayor, he refused to come out yesterday with protests over there.
That's right. So many of us were at a rally at city council and wanted to meet with the mayor to tell him that he needs to do more than write a letter saying he opposes stepping forward. And he wasn't there, even though he knew people were coming. So the point is, we need to put more pressure on them. And one idea that Fadumo and I have been talking about is doing a massive community march, right, that will show all the public opposition to this. And I'd say, you know what, in this community march, let's make Vulcan one of our targets. And say, we want our land back. We want this public housing land back. That's right. And while you're at it, why don't you open your doors to help house some of the people who are being displaced? I mean, I think we all know, and anyway, we'll quickly learn that Vulcan is making money hand over fist, right? I mean, I have some statistics I can share with people if you want to hear it, but basically they have tons of profits, and they continue to get money from the city for their pet projects, like the South Lake Union trolley car. Everybody remembers that? Right, First Hill trolley car. Right, exactly, right through Yesler Terrace. So I'd say enough is enough, right? And if people want to be part, if you like the idea of the community march and you want to help plan it, I will pass out some clipboards, and if you can put your name and contact information on it, then let's work together and make this march happen and show SHA, show the city council, Vulcan, everyone, that there is massive opposition to this. And the fact is that there are many corporations and rich people in this city not paying their fair share. They make money by keeping the wages of workers low and then getting tax breaks from elected officials. So it's beyond time to flip that script. And I think Vulcan is just the beginning target. So all the action that's been happening around the Housing Authority and stopping the proposal is really great. There's so many passionate groups and individuals that are involved. And we can see it, I can see it at the SHA hearings and the rally that we were just talking about at City Council yesterday. But it's clear we've got a longer fight on our hands. So the challenge really is to find ways to come together, to strategize, to plan, to organize. So we want to build something that's open and democratic, respectful of different views and people who are ready to fight together. And organizing a united front of tenants, workers, housing advocates, and activists, that could really become a broad community and labor coalition that we need to wage a militant fight. We can stop the rent hikes and win a battle for public housing. And I think we can be inspired by the U.S. radicals that I talked about earlier that fought together. They fought for a long time, and we can take inspiration from them and fight just as hard. Yeah, right, and tenants union. So ultimately, all of us poor and working folks, we deserve a better system than this, right? Yes. The crumbs that we've been handed over from the profit-driven system are not meeting our needs. We shouldn't have to fight each other for these little bits of housing, little bits of resources. We shouldn't have to fight for that. So while we do fight for our survival now, I say let's devise some plans for a better system. One that has plenty of housing, plenty of food, and we get to actually keep the money, the wealth that we create. And we decide how we want to spend it, right? So this is the vision of a socialist society. This is what Radical Women and myself and many others are fighting for. So I think that my clients from my social work days deserve that. All of us in this room deserve that. So let's do it together. I look forward to collaborating with you.
Thank you, Gina. Next up is Yusuf Cabdi. He's immigrant rights advocate and former Seattle Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. Please welcome Yusuf.
Thank you very much. Gina, after I listen to you, I'm on the verge of converting to socialism. I can tell you that for sure. Yeah. Thank you very much. My name is Yusuf Cabdi. I speak a little too fast and I have an accent, so if you don't understand, please ask me. My name is Yusuf Cabdi, and I used to be the Seattle Housing Authority Board of Commissioner for 7 years, and one of those 7 years, I was the chair of the board. You know, this is a really very exciting debate, and I don't know even where to start. But I'll tell you, the Seattle Housing Authority is the agency that, first of all, Seattle Housing Authority gets $200 million of taxpayers. And honestly, how they spend that money is very questionable. When I went to the board, I was coached by the management, and they told me that you don't have to see the auditor. We have a committee called Audit Committee, which they have 2 of their favorite board members part of that a committee. And they said, you know, they will report to you, you don't have to see it. I said, you know what? I'm a board member, I'm responsible for my action. And I need to see the auditor, and I need to question him. And they said, you know, that might be really good. They started, you know, trying to really make my life a little miserable. And then I looked for the phone number of the state auditor. I said, you know what, I'm a commissioner. Either you're going to work with me and give me the information, or I'm going to go to the state and I'm going to tell them that you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And he said, then, Seattle, you're okay that your board and housing authority will be okay with it? I said, I don't give a damn about it. I'm a commissioner and I'm entitled to get that information, and you better give it to me, that information. So he started meeting me separately to give me that information. Even the information I was getting, I don't think that was complete, but whatever that was. So the problem with the Seattle Housing Authority, I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I do not believe anybody who has the money or who has the power go to jail in this country. Seriously, half of them should be in jail. Seriously. It's, you know, after I've served Seattle Housing Authority for 7 years, my attitude towards government has changed for the worst. And I honestly think that we deserve a better system. I'm not going to go into it, I can talk about it all day, but I'm going to move to something else. So this is what I'm going to say. Let's talk about the stepping forward. When I was on the board, Seattle Housing Authority came up with this policy saying that we have to impose some sort of time limit to the tenants because some of them have been living there for 20 years. Well, I said then, okay, executive director, you're making $216,000 a year. Do you think also you should have time limit? And after protests and all that, they back off. But eventually I resigned from Seattle Housing Authority on the protest because I was disagreement with Yesler Terrace, and I went public, and I have told everything that's happening today. I resigned in front of the city council, and I told them that, guys, you are doing disservice to the people who elect you. You need to hold this agency accountable. Nobody listened. Now, Seattle Housing Authority is broke because Yesler Terrace, actually, when they were selling, we knew that they are going to give that land for free to Falcons. Okay? Seattle Housing Authority, actually, we sell that building to Falcons, our headquarters. Now they are renting a place for a lot of money, again from Falcon. They sold their building to Falcon, and they're renting another building from Falcon. And that building, second floor, was full of architects working for Falconers and other developers. They were driving the policy of Seattle Housing Authority. So I share all that information with the city council. But nobody has listened, and probably they knew, but they don't want to do anything about it. So now you are hearing from the news that they sold a land that cost $180 million to $20 million to Falcons. And you know, I don't know even really where to begin, but I don't think this country, I don't think we have justice. And the problem is that because of most of us are not really paying attention to what's happening around. And if the system continue the way it is right now, this country won't be in a good shape in the coming 10, 20 years. I'll tell you that for sure. Stepping forward, what they're trying to do is, Seattle Housing Authority is saying this. First of all, they said that we are stepping forward. What they do is that they're saying that we don't care if you make $20 or $5,000, okay? Every year you're going to pay a certain amount of money for 5 years till to the point you reach to pay market rate, which Seattle Housing, City of Seattle market rate is, you know, it's close to $2,000, right? But we want to help you. We like you. We want to become self-sufficient. I used to work for the Department of Employment Security, and let me tell you one thing. As we speak right now, they're laying 150 people. Okay? I don't know if you're aware, anybody who's getting tenant or unemployment has to go through work source every day for looking for a job or getting training. So I asked Seattle Housing Authority, the plan that you're proposing, you're telling these people they're going to get a job and they're going to make $20, $25 and everything will be fine. But what plan do you have that's different from what they're going through right now? They don't have an answer. So the bottom line is that Seattle Housing Authority want to push every low income and especially people of color out of Seattle so they can have those little kids that who are making $300,000 from Amazon and all those places. But this is the point. If we don't really stand up, none of us is going to be here. We have actually organized almost 4 different rallies. 100 of people came. We protested. Eventually, the city council said that we wrote a letter, so we oppose it. But Seattle Housing Authority is doing everything that they were doing in the past. And let me tell you the other thing, who governs Seattle Housing. And this is where the tenant are getting really, this is where we're falling through the cracks. Seattle Housing Authority Board of Commissioners is appointed by the mayor, okay, and is governed and is approved by the city council. When does that happen? They move to Seattle Housing Authority. When you go to the Seattle Housing Authority, the board don't really care about you because you don't have any leverage. You don't elect them. You don't have any leverage. And you go to the city council or the mayor and they say, you know what, they use this word, I don't know even what it means, quasi-agency, means that it's an independent agency that we have nothing to do with it. Okay, where shall I go? If I go to the city, you telling me this, the board doesn't really give a damn about what I think, so what shall I do? We don't know. I'll tell you, no one gets to be appointed Seattle Housing Authority Board of Commissioners without the approval of the Seattle Housing Authority. And that's where the problem is. They have a leverage. They have a leverage. And it's a long story, and how they appoint and people who involve, the long story, but you know, I can write a book about this issue. But the point is, if you see how they set up the system, and many of us don't know about it, you will have been sick for weeks and months. But the bottom line is, yesterday we protested at City Hall, and we asking the City Council and the Mayor to sign proclamation. They heard from us. We have given all that information, and we're waiting from them. But let me tell you one thing: this agency is operating with full impunity from our elected officials. This is what we need to do. We need to hold them accountable. I don't have any leverage for Seattle Housing Authority. The mayor is the one who appointed it. The City Council is the one who approved. And I'll tell you one thing, if they speak and say Seattle Housing Authority don't do that, they will never do it, because Seattle Housing Authority needs not only for the board commissioner's appointment, but also they get the levy money, they get eminent domain, they get all permit, everything. So if city leadership speak and say don't do this, they won't do it. So we need to really wake up. And not only Seattle Housing Authority, but there's many issues happening around here. And we need to stick together, and like-minded people like us need to really get together to really stand up and change the system for the better. And my last advice is, don't drink and drive or vote for Democrat or Republican. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Yusuf. That's a good note to end on. And the next up is Annaliza Torres. Annaliza is a member of the Office and Professional Employees International Union Local 8. She's a Seattle Housing Authority worker and an organizer in the Freedom Socialist Party. So please welcome Annaliza.
Well, Yusuf, thank you. Then as a member of the Freedom Socialist Party, I definitely say everyone should vote socialist, and to find out more, come talk to us. I am very inspired by the panelists here and everyone who came. This is great, and it goes to show how important this issue is. I grew up and live here in South Seattle. As a second-generation Pinay, the daughter of immigrant workers, I saw how hard they fought for better wages for themselves as union organizers, as well as all the discrimination and other mistreatment they experienced because they were different. I'm a community activist now because of what I've witnessed, and I think things should be a lot better, and I don't want their struggles to go in vain. But now, my activism literally comes home. While I work for Seattle Housing Authority, I am not here to speak for them, and I don't want to. I'm here because I want to tell the tenants who are out protesting that not all SHA employees agree with SHA's policy, and I want to tell my coworkers that they are not alone if they don't agree with this policy. There's a lot of pressure going on, not just on the workers, not on the only on the tenants, but as the earlier panelists have explained, you have city council, you have all levels of state government, and you have developers and rich corporations involved. Stakes are very high here, and this is why we must organize together. Right. About 5 years ago, remember we were in the middle of that great recession. The banking industry just got bailed out by the government, but yet tenants in public housing were facing cuts in TANF, general assistance, childcare subsidies, food stamps. The safety net was completely shredded. And the tenants I worked with who experienced that had housing because their rents were reduced, because it was tied to the 30%. That's what public housing is for. Stepping forward is a policy that is being pushed by top management, and mid-management. I'm a worker that works on the front lines, and between me and the executive directors, there's at least 5 levels. So for a public corporation that has at least 5 levels of management, I'm definitely closer to the tenants, and that's where I have the closest alliances. I'm going to talk a little bit about how this policy can impact workers, some of the trends, how this is a trend towards further privatization of housing, and I want people to also leave understanding the numbers. What's the 20% of units, and if the AMI is 80%? What does that mean? And so I want to go over that later. This is also about workers. At our workplace, this is our fight too. As public workers, we deliver services, we administer vouchers and other programs. We've gained experience working with tenants, what's the most efficient way of accomplishing tasks, and we have a stake in making work conditions better, as well as policies that affect the broad public. If stepping forward goes through as is, or even if it moves forward with a little tweak, I don't want to be the person who's going to tell the tenants that they're not worthy enough, or that their hardships isn't good enough, or I don't want to be the one initiating eviction proceedings because they can't pay the rents that are going to be expected of them. As public workers, we served all kinds of tenants with varying abilities, varying languages, abilities, and health conditions. We also have folks who have varying literacy abilities, and in the private market, these tenants wouldn't be treated with respect as people. Historically, unions have fought for better working conditions, better wages, and benefits. And right now, public sector workers are the last in line before everything becoming completely privatized and under the control of the corporations and the rich. That's why they're also under attack, and we've seen that in their wages, in their contracts, as well as the work conditions. I was so inspired when I saw state workers wearing their green with t-shirts that says, "We are the safety net." I think at Seattle Housing Authority, we could say the same thing as far as the services that are provided and the work itself. We need to fight together. And we should. I want to go back to what someone had said earlier about where is the money? Why isn't there any money for public services, or specifically public housing? In a place where there's so much rich, it's all a matter of priorities. Even housing advocates have said the SHA's budget, despite the federal subsidies being reduced, SHA's budget keeps increasing. And again, I say it's about priorities. What are they spending the money on? We're not seeing it at the low-income housing level. And the way things work with the move to work waiver, SHA is able to move its money around and apply it to different places that's not always transparent or clear to not even the workers who try to read it like myself. How much more for everyone else who, so it's hard to understand. So transparency, I like the idea of opening the books. The other stake that workers have is keeping that money accountable. Not only do we live in the city or in the area, we too are taxpayers. How that money is spent needs to be held accountable. And we're seeing a lot of it right now as where is the money going when there's still cuts. SHA just reviewed a budget, and when you look at the current budget, they've added higher paid staff to create like a policy office. So remember how I said there's like 5 levels of management with some of the workers? They're adding more staff to figure out, to do more analyzing, and they're not workers that work directly, that provide the essential service of providing housing. So I want to talk about, I put on people's tables, if you didn't get one, please feel free to flip them over. I didn't give one for everyone, but I want folks to understand a little bit about this chart. And here, there's a couple more. Oh, sorry, I didn't put one of the speakers. Here. Okay, well, while Let's go.
Can we have some for the speaker?
Yes.
We can share.
First speakers.
Okay. So I know there's a lot of numbers here, but just throwing, and I know that in general, the description of affordable housing is pretty much anything that may be less than what's considered market rate. And there's not a lot of desire to be associated with extremely low income, or it's not quite flattering, so affordable is thrown away a lot. If we look at what was, these numbers are also based on the area median AMI, area median income. Does anyone know what that is for the King County area? For King County, it's about 88,000. So that's the middle. So when Gina said that Vulcan's gonna have 20% of their units be 80% of the area median, if you look at the second box that is titled Affordable Rents Including Utilities at 30% of household incomes. If you look at the far right that says 80% and you go down, that's what 80% would look like, or that's how much those units would cost at 80% for a studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, going down. Oh, sorry, yes, so for a studio that at 80% of area median, what's considered affordable, it's 1,118. For a 2 bedroom, it's 1,438. For a 5 bedroom, it's $2,045 at 80% of area median. When the city is looking at their upcoming councils and committees that looks at 80% I think is also considered the workforce housing. So more affordable housing is also between 40 and 60%. And if you stick with that lower percentage, then a studio at 50% area median would be 772. For 2 bedrooms, that would be 992, less than 1,000. And then for a 5 bedroom, that would be 1,411. If it was kept to 30%, which is considered the extremely low income, then it's the first column. A studio would be 465, a 2 bedroom would be less than 600, and then a 5 bedroom would be 846. So what Seattle Housing Authority wants to do, by hitting the hardest, the lowest paid workers of the area, if they remove that 30% standard of income, that means there's nothing that's going to hold or make clear what affordable housing will be in the city. And that's where that affects all workers. Even if you're not qualified for low-income housing, these are the types of rates that you're facing in the rest of the city and eventually county. So workers, all workers have a stake in this. And Yusuf did a good job earlier of connecting the dots with who's all involved, and Gina did too with, we have the richest corporations around, we have city, state, county, and even the president's administration involved in supporting this type of trend. And it's really privatizing public housing. Once you get rid of public housing, there's no limit to how much corporations and developers will charge for rents. And that's exactly what we're trying to stop here, is not let them have free flow, free control over all that should be provided by the government. That's what our taxpayer funds are for. Once public housing or public lands are sold, they're they're not going to be available again. I mean, the government already claims they don't have money, so they can't buy it. Nonprofits can't buy it. That is,
$1 too. They sell $1. Yesler, they broke down three roll of unit, and then they give it to city, $1. Yesler community, the big one, $1.
so in Yesler community, there's
New one.
houses or there's property, houses that were sold
Back
to the city.
$1.
Wow. Okay. So more and more facts comes in, and that's just absolutely outrageous. And yet some of the solutions that are being proposed are, we need to give more developers tax breaks or tax credits or tax exemptions in order to give them incentive to build more affordable housing that really isn't affordable. I'm just so disgusted by how much is going on. So even as someone who tries to pay attention at work, there's just so much that is going on that isn't clear to a lot of the workers. And again, it goes back to priorities. Why is there no money for public housing when, we could fund, military spending. We could invade and continue to attack other countries, and yet we can't provide that we can't provide services for our local needs. I'm sorry, I'm still surprised by all this information I'm learning. And
Motivation to fight.
I know that thank you. That's why I'm looking at my notes here. Like I said, it's really hard. There's a lot of pressure to not oppose this at work, and I'm inspired by the folks that are here, that are speaking out, and it does affect us now if it doesn't already. I know personal friends who've been pushed out of the city because they can't afford it, and I've had friends who have moved, who's been moved out of the city, or else if they do live in the city, there's so many house sharing. What's the concept of enough space anymore? The answer is not going to be, let's have more affordable, like miniature micro housing. Closet space. And so one of the things that we should do, as it is election time, is recognize the Democrats and the Republicans are a part of this privatization efforts. There's no separation from that. And because of that, workers and the community need to unite to overthrow that profit system. We need to take profits out of the money making from housing. It's plentiful, it should be available for all, and working together, want to be in solidarity with each other, can we finally accomplish that? We need to, otherwise we're not going to live in the city. And I personally thought I had a good job at Seattle Housing Authority, but when I look at this chart here, and I look at the other cost of housing beyond where I'm currently at, I wouldn't be able to live here. So it's completely unreasonable to expect those standards on the current tenants who have a lot of challenges but have a lot of support in the services that they receive now. But there could be, Seattle Housing Authority, if they wanted to spend money on services, they can. The money is there. Thanks.